Hey everybody, Richard Fournier here from the Fournier Experience Real Estate team here in Barrie and Simcoe County. As the spring market is starting to heat up, we're starting to see a lot of buyers coming up from the city, and we're starting to think a lot of questions because they're very interested in rural properties. And there are a couple different things about rural properties that a buyer has to keep in mind. So we thought we'd bring in Cindy Johnston, who is our resident pro when it comes to rural properties. And she's going to explain to us a few things that buyers have to become aware of. So Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Cindy, as buyers are moving up from the city and they're looking at rural properties, they probably have never had any experience in that area, and there's a couple things that they need to pay attention to. So what type of guidance would you be giving a buyer who's never had experience with a rural property?
There's a lot of things that I think people need to take into consideration when moving from the city to the country. Two of the big ones would be a well and a septic system. And I think there is a misconception out there that really how they work and what the pros and cons are on them.
Right. So would you, are they difficult to work with, or you have a septic system at home?
I do.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, do you find it difficult to maintain, or what do we got to do with the septic system?
You know what, they're fairly maintenance free. As long as they're installed properly and they are maintained, there's really not much else to do. Every 3 to 5 years they require pumping, which is a few $100s. Other than that, when they do the pump, they do the inspection of both tanks, make sure there's no corrosion or anything happening, and that's really it with them.
And so when we make an offer for a buyer on a rural property, there's typically a couple of conditions we normally include, right? So one of them is, well, maybe you can explain those two conditions to everyone here.
Absolutely. So a couple things that as a buyer you need to be aware of. One is the water flow rate, which quite simply is whether or not the well can supply the house enough water to service it. The second one is the water quality. So both of those we add in additional clauses into any rural offer that they're making, and they're basically a water test and a water flow rate test.
Awesome. So I guess what are they testing for in terms of the water test? Like what's is there something we should be? Is it arsenic or?
No, not at all. What they're testing for really is bacteria. It is coming right from the ground to your house. So they're looking for coliform and E. coli. If it comes back with either one of those, it's nothing to panic about. Okay. Really, we look to amend the offer, and in that amendment, we ask for a UV filtration system to be put in. And then from there, what that UV filtration system does basically is it starts at the house, and before it even the water hits your taps, it's gone through the system, so that will kill any potential bacteria, and we do another test at the end of it.
That's right. So is it fair to say that the seller has the responsibility to provide potable water?
Absolutely. It is the seller's responsibility to provide drinkable water for you and your family. And truthfully, you can't really purchase the property without it.
Right. So
lenders won't allow it.
The lenders won't allow it.
No.
Okay. So just a note to any of our potential sellers that if you don't have a UV filtration system and your water is not potable, the buyer's lender will not lend on the property until there is potable water. So you do have a responsibility to make sure that water is safe to drink. Now let's talk a little bit about septic systems. How long do they usually last? Do you have I've seen them last for...
You know what, if they're properly maintained, they will last for years. I do have a septic system, and it is original to my house from the early 90s. Now they say there is a lifespan on them, which it's changed. So 15 years. However, it really depends as well when it comes to living in the country, because different municipalities and different areas require different types of maintenance. So, for example, parts of Tiny Township close to the water and Innisfil require that it be done every year.
In terms of pumping
and maintaining it. But in terms of the life of it, it really is quite long. Maintain it as long as it's maintained. You're not driving and parking very heavy things on top of it. It will last quite some time.
That's great. So the conclusion of this is that don't be afraid of buying rural property. Do not be afraid of septic systems. Do not be afraid of wells just make sure that you're working with agents and a team that really know what they're doing in regards to protecting you, the buyer, from doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing. Listen, thank you so much, Cindy, for spending some time with us. In the meantime, if you have any questions about buying rural property, or you are actually thinking of selling today, please reach out to us. We're here to help in any way that we possibly can, and we look forward to earning the right to do business with you in the future. Thanks again. Have a great day.